Okay, our next section is going to be telling us how do we express a fraction as a decimal. If you have a fraction, how do you rewrite it as a decimal that equals that same fraction? And the answer is very simple. The answer is you divide the numerator by the denominator. So, for instance, some of you may have forgotten what a numerator and a denominator is. If you have the fraction 1 over 5, 1 would be the numerator, 5 would be the denominator. So in order to change the fraction 1/5 to a decimal, you would do numerator divided by denominator. It's very important that you put them in your calculator in the correct order. The 1 first divided by the 5. If you do 5 divided by 1, you won't get the correct answer. The decimal won't be equal to 1/5. When you put 1 divided by 5 in your calculator, you should get 0.2. So this would be the equivalent decimal, or this fraction expressed as a decimal. Okay, now we're going to do some examples from your homework practice. 1-1A homework practice is where I'm taking these examples from. And I'm going to start off with question number 1. Similar to the one that I just did, they're asking us the directions. Say it's very important that you always read the directions because they change from time to time. Write each fraction or mixed number as a decimal. So here's the fraction, and if we want to write it as a decimal, we simply do 3 divided by 5, which gives us 0.6, and you're done. This is the final answer. Number 2 is 5/8. So you do 5 divided by 8, and I don't have this in my head, so I'm going to use my calculator. 5 divided by 8 equals 0.625. Final answer. Okay, the next question I'm going to do is number 5. Skipping down to number 5. I'm leaving some of these for you to do on your own. And number 5 says negative 11 16. I'm sorry, negative 11/16. Now, one thing I want to say, when you have a negative with a fraction, you have something very unique, because negatives really do not have to be assigned to any particular place. In other words, if you put the negative with the numerator, it's the same thing as putting the negative out in front, and it's the same thing. Let's make this a little easier. And it's the same thing as putting the negative in the denominator. All three are equal. Neither one of these is wrong. But for doing pre-algebra, it's always easiest to leave the negative with the numerator. So I prefer to use this one. So in this case, negative 11/16, let's make the negative with the numerator. It's always easier to work with that way, usually. For our cases, for the lessons we'll be doing, it's easier to use the negative in the numerator. So now you can solve this. Negative 11 divided by positive 16 gives you, and I need my calculator. Make sure if you're using a calculator that you put the negative sign in correctly. And I get negative 0.6875 as my final answer. Notice the answer is negative. The fraction was negative, so your decimal should be negative. Okay? Next question I'm going to do is number 8. And number 8 says 4 3/8. 4 3/8 is what we call a mixed number. And I'm sorry if you hear any background noise, but 4 3/8 is what we call a mixed number. And the reason it's a mixed number is because, let me write it up here. The reason 4 3/8 is a mixed number is because it has a whole number and it also has a fraction. The 4 would be the whole number and 3/8 would be the fraction. So whenever you have a whole number and a fraction put together, it's called a mixed number. Okay? So if we want to change that mixed number to a decimal, there's two different ways to do it. I'll show you both ways and I'll let you choose which one you like the best. Okay? The first way is that you can separate them. So you can put the 4, you're going to have a decimal. The 4 is going to go in front of the decimal, and whatever we get when we change 3/8 into a decimal is going to go after the decimal. So for instance, 3 divided by 8 gives you, let's see, 1 minute. 3 divided by 8 gives you 0.375. So 0.375 comes after the decimal, and that's it. The answer will be 4.375. Now, if you have to change this, there's a different way you can do it. You can change 4 3/8 to an improper fraction, which is how you do this. You do multiplication, and then you do addition. So you do 8 times 4, which is 32. 32 plus 3 equals 35. So you get 35 over 8. You keep the denominator. So you multiply, you add, and keep the denominator. 8 times 4 is 32. 32 plus 3 is 35 over 8. Then you just do your regular division. 35 divided by 8, and you get 4.375. And you're done. And that's it.